'Tis the festive season again, and this time we're back with a bang. Last year we started the tradition of ranking the previous 10 EastEnders Christmas episodes. It may have had some hiccups, but the concept was still sound. Every year families gather around the TV full of Christmas dinner and anticipate the one time of the year they aren't ashamed to be an EastEnders fan. Everything is ramped up to 11, with the biggest showdowns only marked for the most festive of occasions. There are countless iconic Christmas Day moments, so much so there are so many people who will watch at Christmas, be inspired, then slowly fall out of love once the January blues hit. The drama faces the highest heights, posing the one question that remains: whether lives are ruined forever. Begrudgingly to the executive producers, it can be a poisoned chalice to describe which major stories will headline this big day, with there being many times where the perfect story is chosen to star. Other times, the fandom gets whiplash wondering why such a topic was given the leading role. In the main though, you can all but guarantee that the bigger storylines need to climax at Christmas, the dark secrets needs to be revealed, or the affair needs to be outed in front of everyone. All of that to say, no one should take the easy road in a Walford Christmas. I do have to argue that as much as I would have loved to have sat down and watched the full build to all of these Christmas episodes, there isn't enough time in the world to do so. And equally, I don't have the first-hand experience of watching any of these episodes when they aired, so I may not have the experience of the viewer, unlike last year where I had watched the majority of said Christmas episodes when they aired. For the sake of clarity, these are rankings from worst to best, not favourites. So we are trying to make it as objective as possible. If you disagree with my list, feel free to discuss it in the comment section. I'm Ash from Watching Walford, and today I'll be ranking every EastEnders Christmas from 2002 to 2012 from worst to best. Christmas 2011. Christmas 2011 is the breaking point of Yusuf Khan and Zainab's relationship, where they had taken Zainab, who is only ever a comedic character, and embroil her in a much darker storyline that even the actress Nina Wadia was shocked by. Yusuf Khan is a man who Zainab was married to as part of an arranged marriage at the age of 17. Zainab brought shame upon their families when she had an affair with Masood, and as punishment, Yusuf set Zainab on fire. She would later divorce Yusuf and marry Masood, who would move to the UK. Yusuf would re-enter Zainab's life and systematically cut up Masood and bed himself with Zainab again. Very quickly, he would enact his controlling and abusive behaviour, dosing her with sleeping medication, being physically violent, and was possessive. This would all come to a head on Christmas Day 2011, where Zainab would try to remove herself from Yusuf's controlling and abusive ways. Yusuf is aiming to leave for Pakistan with Zainab and Camille, but when Zainab would sabotage this, he would kidnap Camille and keep him hidden away from the Masoods. This Christmas Day would display Zainab fighting back, while Masood is desperately trying to find baby Camille. When Zainab does this, he tries to force-feed her medication and then throws her back on the bed. Yusuf's daughter Afia overhears them screaming at one another as he threatens to burn Zainab again and terrorizes her by acting like he'll throw her out of the window. She kicks him in the guts and makes her escape, sitting in the alley next to the house while he feigns his escape. This just as Masood returns with baby Camille, but she's too weak to verbally react. Yusuf catches her whilst Masood is climbing in through the window. She screams at Yusuf, telling him to hit her now and that he has to pray while knowing he has done this. She asks him why and even hits out at him, while he turtles up, starts crying, and admits that he is a sick man, which leads for him to be back in the home. She feels like she has taken back her control, but he's once again drugged her tea. She passes out from the spiking and Yusuf has control once again. The Ahmeds and Afia find Yusuf dragging Zainab up the stairs, while Masood triumphantly smashes Yusuf across the face. The Ahmeds are celebrating Yusuf finally being out of their lives, but when Masood finds him, he is lighting a match, ready to set Patrick's B&B ablaze. As for side stuff, we continue to see Joshua Pascoe's Ben Mitchell working with D.I. Marston to set up Phil for Stella's death, and he sends her a recording to Denise over Phil saying he is the reason why Denise's old husband Kevin Wicks is dead. This then leads to Denise smashing Phil's car windows in and waging a war on the Mitchells. While I'm always happy to see these huge social issues being depicted in the biggest episodes of the year, I don't think this story was worthy of a Christmas episode. Admittedly, this story did lend itself to some fantastic performances from Nina Wadia. I think its direction was shafted by, as Wadia puts it,
yes, when the storylines get so ridiculous and so difficult, you kind of think, I'm out. The reason I left was because the storylines were getting ridiculous.
Is that true?
That was one of the reasons I left. There were several, but that was one of the main reasons. It was, my husband Masood was going to have yet another affair, and I was like, how can I react any differently to the way I reacted before when he told me he was having an affair? I was brought in as... I think the brief was Pauline Fowler but funny. So they wanted EastEnders to have some kind of levity in it. Yeah. And for the first 2 years, I was given free rein to do that. It was great fun. And then they gave me a domestic violence storyline, and he thought, how can I be funny with that storyline? I don't understand. And I think that's what happens is when you have a change at the top with the execs, they bring in their vision, and all of a sudden, as someone who hasn't really been paying attention to what your character's been doing, all of a sudden you're asked to do something absolutely ridiculous.
Not to be the villain here, but ridiculous does describe this episode. While they try to depict this really dark and disturbing domestic violence, you have Masood going from door to door trying to find baby Camille. There's just such a cognitive dissonance within this episode because you don't know how to feel. Quite frankly, I don't think the Ahmeds or even a developed enough family to be able to carry such a storyline. Even then, it's not as if it went on to spiral this momentum and lead her to become a huge character afterwards. She went back to regularly scheduled storylines until she would quit by 2012 and hasn't been asked back since. I don't know who decided that the entire of this Christmas is about building up to the Boxing Day B&B fire, which you have to wonder, if it took place on Christmas, would have been way more interesting than this one. Perhaps an argument against doing that on Christmas is that a fire's too dark, but it can hardly be worse than seeing a woman be controlled and manipulated by her abusive partner. I think it just lacks the real memorable moments, and instead of being made greater by Christmas, it feels weighed down by the occasion. It just seems like a symptom of these later Christmas episodes where they got lost in the sauce. Stories that probably didn't deserve the spotlight got them, and a lot of them sank rather than swim. Christmas 2012. In 2012, we seem to be painting the demise of Derek Branning, the eldest brother of the Branning clan who takes his role as head of the family seriously. He was a constant criminal and embodied that hard East End nutter who would cross you and leave you for dead. We are setting up Derek Branning's demise with everyone just about fed up with his attitude. Once cornered by his brothers, they threaten him and decide that these are his last days on the square, as he is losing grasp on everyone close to him. He just wants a little bit of respect, but everyone is sick of the sight of him. Kat immediately regrets saddling up with Derek Branning and Mrs. Alfie. Roxy is desperately pining for Alfie this Christmas, telling him she loves him, just before Kat arrives and apologises to him and wants him back. Kat explains how she tried to explain that Derek lied to her, and they both say they love each other, but Alfie says he's moved on as Roxy Mitchell comes down the stairs fixing her hair. Max proposes to Tanya by buying her a wedding dress, and they're getting married right here. While Derek has arranged for Max's secret wife Kirsty Branning to arrive, who is a massive confrontation. She calls him a coward and wonders why he never gave her the chance. Max admits it would have been too hard and that he couldn't risk it. It turns out that Derek lied, saying she signed the divorce papers and paid her, but Derek didn't tell him. Not that he was still married, and not that she lost the baby. That he knew nothing about. Max wants to talk to Tanya alone, as Kirsty is claiming her territory, saying that Tanya stole her husband. Max wants to believe that Tanya will forgive him for this, and he claims that he thought it was real. Kat arrives back and realizes Derek has been playing her the entire time. Derek tries to force her out with him. When he raises his voice, Max and Jack bust in and have a vicious confrontation as Derek lambasts his brothers with the famous line, "I am Derek Branning!" and claims he's going to go back to his house in peace and quiet. Max, Jack, and Joey, Derek's son, throw him out of the house as he threatens them all, but he calls over in pain, having a heart attack, as the rest of them watch as he fades away right in front of them. It's only after he takes his last breath that they realise he wasn't faking it. For me, this Christmas episode is carried alone by Derek Branning. It's a stunning juxtaposition over how his family received him in 2011 and how they see him towards the end of 2012. Derek's constant desire for respect and admiration grates on the Brannings, who start to hate the ground he walks on. At a certain point in time, everyone in the family, other than Carol, just see him as a problem they are forced to put up with. At the start, you recognise everything he does to command this respect, but as the cracks start to form, you realise he is underhanded and only really cares about number one. The cult of personality over Derek probably carries what is an otherwise mundane Christmas. You look at the direction that many of these characters have to undergo. Kat and Derek Branning, Alfie and Roxy, Max and Tanya back together, but one more time again another woman from Max's past threatens to destroy his golden family. The direction at this point in time is deeply struggling, and you can notice how far from the status quo a lot of these characters are. To think that the last few Christmas episodes have been Stacey Slater's overcooked exit, then the alarmingly dull Zainab and Yusuf story, and for it to reach this disappointing end with Derek leading the charge in a fractured at best Branning family, working on fumes from Christmas's past. While I will always maintain that the use of Derek Branning was a real bright spot of the 2010s, and the legacy due to his Christmas death is perhaps much greater than the sum of its parts. The perfect ending for a character that demands so much, and even in his death, the family refuses to be suckered in again. Christmas 2004. 2004 is unfortunately a Christmas that doesn't hit the mark. Den has just taken control of the Queen Vic, kicking the Moons out as he wants his castle back. The Watts sit around and open their presents. After Den's return, he embarked on a journey to reclaim what he believes is his, but this Den Watts is a much more conniving character. He only really loves his Princess Sharon, and often finds Vicky and Dennis in the way of his happiness. Dennis wakes up in Zoe's flat and immediately phones Sharon. They've arranged to leave for New York together, as no one in Walford is willing to accept their love, especially not their controlling father. It's a really twisted and tragic romance where Dennis is in love with Sharon, but in a relationship with Zoe, and Zoe is in love with Dennis, whose eyes are elsewhere. Throughout the episode, we see that Den has a plan to keep his family together. Christmas dinner in the Vic, with Chrissy Watts desperately trying to get through Christmas unscathed. As, despite Den getting his happy ending, within the Vic, he had conned and scammed his way here, while dangling the love and affection for his kids, while being almost too quick to snatch it away if they go against his wishes. When Sharon and Dennis unveil their plans to go to New York, Den is disgusted and brands it incest. Which, to clarify the weird Watts family dynamic, Sharon is adopted by Den and Angie and is not biologically related to Dennis or Vicky. This is why Dennis and Sharon's relationship is above board, but even then, everyone looks at it with a little bit of shame. Den, once again by devious means, intends to keep his family together. He insists that Zoe lie about being pregnant, as he knows Dennis is a good man and will protect his child. He wouldn't want to abandon them, as he was a product of the foster system with a wayward father. Den explains that Dennis cannot leave because Zoe is pregnant, which leaves Sharon despairing and goes to leave without him, while Vicky joins her. Den and Dennis fight. The side plot to this somewhat dreary Christmas is Alfie keeps threatening to leave Walford. but keeps getting tempted back into the fold, and in the end he decides to stick around, staying for the next year. Despite this Christmas premise feeling quite exciting, the crowning of unjust King Den Watts doesn't feel as grand as it's supposed to be. He is so far removed from his initial portrayal in 85 to 89, he grew bitter, cold and conniving, in only deriving pleasure from controlling his position and his family. It's all ego and it's all status with Den, and his relationship with anyone but Sharon is on the periphery. This Christmas is supposed to be Den's moment fronting the Vic again with the family he's built up along the way. Except when Sharon and Dennis use his time to reveal they are in love and are leaving together, Den is quite frankly disgusted. He scrambles to find a way to control the situation, wanting to destroy this relationship as it is not in his plan. So he concocts a ruse to throw an imaginary baby bombshell which would lead for Sharon to be too upset to stay, and a reason for Dennis to stay committed to Zoe. I think the EastEnders writers were reasonably reticent to fully platform Den Watts after Leslie Grantham's public sex scandal in May 2004. From that point onwards, they were quite happy to morph Den from a multi-layered, lovable rogue to an out-and-out villain. I think the biggest crux of this Christmas is the fact that it's just simply quite muted and dull. Chrissy is completely insignificant, Zoe and Dennis are clearly unhappy, and despite the chemistry between Dennis and Sharon, it's not enough to make us want them to leave to be together, with Vicky being only as memorable as her horrific American accent. This Christmas is only as enjoyable as you can get into the minutiae. The framing of Den Watts being the rightful king, leading to his death, they took great pleasure in slowly deconstructing Den and giving the three women the motive for taking him down. It's just disappointing really, as his return and the material he got on launch was fantastic. But the longer his return went on, the further his stock fell. Now whether that's down to him or the writers is another thing, but it manifested in a pretty boring Christmas episode. Between that and Alfie flirting with leaving just lends to a rather unremarkable Christmas, with the main highlight being Den Watts' mask slipping further and further complementing the imminent fall from grace which coincides with the 20th anniversary. Christmas 2010. Christmas 2010 is the fabled exit of perhaps the fastest rising soap star of the 2000s. Stacey Slater, who went from mouthy young Slater to being the leading lady with many of the Christmas episodes that follow surrounding her. Throughout 2010 and in the aftermath of the Archie Mitchell whodunit, Stacey and Janine had been feuding, with Ryan Malloy being the prized pig caught in between two fiery women. Stacey, who has been running away from the truth of Archie Mitchell and has been paranoid since the previous Christmas day, while Janine has been gunning for her and will stop at nothing to drive Stacey away from her man and her square. Stacey confesses to Jean that she was at fault for Archie, as Janine is cutthroat, insisting she pay. Jean wants to take baby Lily away for not believing Stacey is to be trusted. This is while Ronnie and Roxy are desperate to find the truth over what happened to their dad. Ryan finds his courage and insists that he and Stacey leave London and go on the run. In a massive confrontation, Janine tries to get the truth out of Stacey and brands her a murderer. This is when Janine makes her boldest choice yet. She grabs a kitchen knife, puts it in Stacey's hand and stabs herself, leaving Stacey no choice but to run. She believes it's time to go the way of Bradley and climbs up to the roof of the Vic, but Max talks her down. Jean still wants to take Lily away from Stacey, but when she admits all of her reasons for killing Archie, she starts to see sense and is happy for Lily and Stacey to go. Ryan wants to flee again, but this time with Stacey, who is unsure about their future together. So she leaves with Max in tow, where she is asked by the Mitchell sisters whether she killed Archie, which she admits. Ronnie holds Roxy back and helps Stacey go. This is how Janine throws herself into the Vic with a stab wound, while Max and Stacey drive away unseen. Ryan equally sees what Janine has done and sees her for who she is. Max gives Stacey money and they go through the same "I love you, Stace" routine. And Max, despite being with Vanessa Gold, is ready to risk it all for one more chance with Stacey. She puts him down gently, saying she loves Bradley. So finally, after a whirlwind few years on Albert Square, Stacey Slater jets off with a wad of cash and baby Lily, set to embark on her new life away from all of this chaos. Between this episode that was supposed to feel like the clash of two titans in Stacey and Janine, it just felt like the writers had to continue the obsession with Stacey as a character. Rehashing the Max and Stacey dynamic with Ryan caught in the middle just felt tired, and every time they add another chapter to the page, the audience proceeds to get more frustrated over this toxic relationship. It just swaps between which person on the day decides to go against it. Furthering this as well, despite Janine and Stacey having some fantastic moments feuding, this Christmas episode feels rather performative, where Janine gets stabbed just to give the final reason in making sure Stacey leaves. It just feels like this Christmas is sacrificed to try and kingmaker Stacey to be an iconic character. I still maintain that dealing with the ramifications of the Archie Mitchell whodunit 1 year on just feels tired, in an era that just gratuitously kept trying to add more twists and turns and shocks without necessarily earning them. I recognise that Lacey Turner had put in an absolute shift and was morphing into a huge EastEnders character, leading so many great stories and essentially carrying the Slaters single-handedly after Sean's exit. This Christmas exit was supposed to feel like Stacey circling back to what gave her character status, but unfortunately I just felt it hurt the character. To maintain this position, just think of the Archie Mitchell whodunit ending, which was originally supposed to be given to Peggy Mitchell, though it was changed to Stacey because Peggy was set to leave, as Stacey had announced her intentions to leave, with Brian Kirkwood referring to her as one of the all-time greats, which in my opinion was why she was consistently gifted these huge opportunities. Not to say that she was a nepo pick for these storylines, as Lacey Turner is an all-time great, but it's incredible how uninteresting and unambitious this Christmas feels. Where you think Janine has won the feud and they are addressing Max and Stacey one last time, where it should be a big moment where she chooses Bradley, but unfortunately it's just caked in filler while trying to act like the cracks weren't very pronounced. It is hard to quantify what went wrong with this Christmas, as it echoes in top tier billing, but somehow despite everything, it falls when it's supposed to flourish. I think the hour-long runtime hindered the episode, and instead of becoming iconic, the episode simply becomes arduous. Even in the framing of the triangle between Ryan, Max and Stacey, the fact that Ryan is just discarded away shows that in their minds the Max and Stacey pairing is greater. But likewise, that is just tired, and every time it gets revisited, it gets a collective yawn from the audience. Christmas 2008. Christmas 2008 starts with the overarching theme of finding out who the daddy of Roxy Mitchell's baby Amy is. The audience knows it's her sister's boyfriend Jack Branning's, but loose cannon Sean Slater is gradually starting to like the idea of being a father. It starts off with Sean arranging some Christmas karaoke as he is blaring Stop the Cavalry through the square, while Archie Mitchell puts a stop to things. We then see all of the families enjoying themselves. Shirley, Heather, Minty, Gary and some others are hungry as they have no dinner, so they break into the cafe and have a Christmas full English breakfast. The police are called and Ian doesn't charge them. Ian is using the occasion to get some brownie points with Jane, so offers to give his turkey to Bianca and Ricky. So the Masouds bring around their curry, and the Heather Shirley crew have nowhere else to go, so the Beals are feeding mouths this Christmas. The Mitchells are enjoying Christmas. Roxy is making dinner with Sean, but a wayward Susie Branning is stealing the show. Susie has been with Phil Mitchell, but has been used as a pawn in Archie's game to keep the truth about Danielle away from Ronnie, and simply used for any of his mischievous actions. He is paying Susie money to expose the truth of a baby Amy's parentage, hoping that his scheme will destroy Roxy's relationship with Sean, as he is not the father. Susie is told to plant the DNA test results in Sean's Christmas cracker, this while Susie crashes out at the Mitchell table, insulting the entire Mitchell family, leaving them all stunned before Sean pulls his cracker and finds the DNA test results. Sean Slater is not baby Amy's father. Sean is rightfully pissed, as he's been misled to believe that Amy is his. Everyone tries to calm Sean down. Stacey and Danielle go around to the Vic, while Stacey causes a scene and secretly tells Danielle to go upstairs to talk to Roxy. She would convince Roxy to talk to Sean. She goes to the laundrette to try and make peace. Jack and Ronnie arrive to try and defuse the situation, but Sean has an inkling that Jack already knew. He and Jack get into a shouting match, where finally Ronnie realises that Jack is the father of baby Amy. Jack, quite like Max, refuses to accept his part in it and throws Sean up against a wall, threatening to smash his head in if he doesn't stop lying, but Roxy cannot keep the secret anymore and exposes that Jack is baby Amy's father. Then, to top it all off, after a very tough Christmas for Dot, who spends it with Jim after his stroke, thinks he left his hat around, but when she opens the door, it's not Jim Branning, it's actually Nick Cotton, who says,
"Merry Christmas, Ma."
After what is a fairly stacked couple of Christmas episodes, I genuinely believe that 2008 is a sizable step down. This is a major Mitchell Christmas, but it truly doesn't reach the mark. Susie Branning spends this episode teasing to destroy the fabric the Mitchells are built on, which I think is superb, don't get me wrong, but this wasn't what the Christmas episode wanted to build. I simply believe that they fell on the expectations that they had set the year before in 2007, and watching them back to back, you just feel like they wanted to try and recreate the magic. The entire build of part 1 is Susie threatening to expose the Mitchell's secrets, and at the end Sean finds out that baby Amy isn't his. Then part 2 is Sean lashing out and trying to find out the secret. It just feels so uninspired to put this out there a year after 2007. What even is the huge payoff in this episode? Ronnie looks dumbstruck after she realises that her fella has been playing away, a threatened confrontation of Jack looking like he's about to hit Sean, but he doesn't. It's a wet fart with no poo, and so devoid of any aspiration. I don't understand how you headline an episode with Roxy Mitchell and Sean Slater, and it's completely overshadowed by Susie Branning reading the family the riot act. Susie Branning is the character equivalent of a fart in a hurricane, with about as much impact on soap as Reg Cox. 2008 is a chronic disappointment to me. It's another in a long chapter of either overcooking EastEnders Christmas episodes or under-delivering. Christmas 2005. Christmas 2005 is essentially a sequel to Christmas 2003. Yes, technically every Christmas is a sequel to the previous, but this one is what should have been the finale to the Cat and Alfie story. After the previous year where Alfie was threatening to leave Walford, he stuck around for another year. Throughout the episode, Little Mo is reminding Cat that this is the happy ending, her dreams will come true. Cat keeps getting her hopes up and is excited to be whisked away by Alfie. Cat, a defined pessimist, tells Mo that dreams don't become realities in her world. So will she get a happy ending after all? Is the theme of this Christmas. Alfie buys her some stickers to put up in her room, so in the dark the stickers look like glowing stars. Kat returns with some dice for Alfie's car, but she is devastated when she sees Alfie drive off without her. She is distraught. In terms of side plots, we see Phil, who is trying to reconnect with Ben, who is living in South Africa with Kathy. He demands Ian give him Kathy's number, but he takes great pleasure in refusing Phil's request. Instead, his Christmas ends with him watching Indiana Jones with Billy, who cannot stop gawking over honey. Martin and Sonia are having an absolutely disgraceful Christmas. Both of them are just screaming at each other since they've had to take care of Bex. Back to Kat, who is lashing out after being left in the lurch and is throwing herself at men. Her and the Slaters are setting the world to rights. She breaks down in the bathroom, sobbing as Goodbye My Lover plays over the jukebox. Kat takes her makeup off, loses her heels and goes outside. Her man in the moon is standing tall in the snow. Alfie says he's got 80 quid and half a tank of petrol and it's time to start living. This would be the final exit for Kat and Alfie and acts as one of the more magical Christmas endings. Alfie fleeing midway through the episode is a perfect synopsis for Kat and Alfie mania, where as an audience we are just like Kat are put through the ringer, wondering why it all goes wrong for her. For all of the time between Alfie's exit and Alfie's return, we feverishly hate Alfie for abandoning the woman he claims to love. She truly is a tragic character, and is definitely leaning on the edge as to how much tragedy both Kat and the audience can take. The perfect irony where Kat's in the bathroom sobbing when Goodbye My Lover blasts over the speakers. With every episode acting as a time capsule, the highs you go on are ever present when watching these Christmas episodes. There are two major reasons why this Christmas isn't higher on the list, and the first reason is that the sequel is never usually as good as the first one. Christmas 2003 is a wonderful episode that embodied the Kat and Alfie story tremendously. But within this, you have to take into account the extra mileage the pair has gone through since. Not overall, it would be out of pocket to take the history beyond 2005 into account on this list, but you are trying to tell the same story again, after them nearly throwing Kat and Alfie in the drain. They cannot rehash the same story again and expect the audience to be clamouring for it the second time round. The moment where Alfie leaves, instead of mourning with Kat, it's burning hatred for Alfie, pained with questions like, why would he do this again? All in all, this episode is weighed down by the pretty atrocious Miller subplot, where Rosie Miller welcomes her ex-husband on the big day. All I'll say is history doesn't look back too fondly on the Millers. The greatest value this Christmas episode brings is being able to remind everyone why Kat and Alfie were so infectious in the first place. Their chemistry is unmatched, and upsettingly it shows that if the story had ended here, the legacy would be one of the strongest in soap history. With soap acting as a fictionalized interpretation of reality, and perhaps this crosses into pessimism here, in real life you don't often get that storybook fairy tale ending. But in soap, if all the cards fall in your favour, you do get your man in the moon, or your happy ever after. This Christmas shows that dreams do come true, and for one day a year you will put all your troubles behind you and put up with people you'd otherwise avoid. These memories last a lifetime. The cutting funnel message is at the end of the day, sometimes part 2 can convolute and destroy what acts as a fantastic story, and 2005 is much worse than 2003. Christmas 2002. 2002 has three faces. Billy and Little Mo Slater, Jamie clinging on to life after being run over by Martin Fowler, and finding out the true parentage of baby Bobby. On to Mo, who is ecstatic about her big day as she believes this is her happy ending. After being saddled with abusive villain Trevor Morgan, the previous year her head was being forced into Christmas dinner, and this year she is marrying the unlikely man of her dreams, Billy Mitchell. As she has been through the worst, there are no nerves or trepidation for Mo. This offsets the other Slaters, who are weirded out over how calm she is about it. It's not all sunshine and roses, however, as Billy visits his nephew Jamie. Jamie, who has taken a turn for the worst and is currently on life support after being run down. Billy wants to call off the wedding as he wants his best man to be there for it, but Jamie simply tells him to go through with the wedding. Unconvinced, Billy goes to the Slaters to argue about why they should postpone the wedding so Jamie can be there. As the Slaters are superstitious, they don't let Billy in to see the dress, so they communicate in the middle of the square behind the Christmas tree. So in a fantastic shot, you have Mo, a Christmas tree, and Billy talking about the wedding, while Billy voyeuristically tries to steal some glances at his wife in her wedding dress. Throughout, they come to the consensus that the wedding will continue. At the hospital, you have a tale of many different reactions to grief. Sonia, who is despairing but trying to not think about it, Phil, who is in denial, Peggy, who is gutted, and Jim Branning, who doesn't know when to shut it. Jim Branning brings the sandwiches and explains how Dot is making the effort. She's praying for as much good as that'll do. He goes real existential, discussing how in life you don't know what to expect, but you only have so long and so much time. After countless minutes of this, Phil gets up knowing that if he deals with any more of Jim's blabbering, he will either deck him or burst into tears. Phil looks through the window looking at Sonia and Jamie spending their last day together, but Phil cannot stomach saying anything that makes it real. From the declining moments of life to the declining moments of love, Ian Beale shows down with his partner Laura Beale in one of the most hopeless whodunits. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of Laura's choice for baby daddies. He stands on business and refuses to budge on being the father. And why is that? Because Ian has a vasectomy, which I can frankly say has saved the Beale family a whole lot of heartache. Laura doesn't want to be thrown out of the house, but is confident knowing she owns the place, but Ian got it written over to him instead. He throws Laura out on the street, and with nowhere else to go, she calls who she thinks is the father, Gary Hobbs. Gary practically calls her a slapper and insists the baby is not his and refuses to give her a place to stay. Billy is huffing a bottle of indigestion medicine as Patrick and Anthony show up. They give Billy a righteous pep talk as more people start to show up and congratulate him. Unfortunately, an old lady hugs him and the Pepto-Bismol breaks, leaving him with a bright pink stain on his suit. The Slaters are a little worried over Billy showing up, so he arrives with Alfie and Gary gets her a little bit later because of Laura. The wedding is a beautiful coming together of Mo getting a happy ending after what has been and what will continue to be a tragic stint on the square. Sonia's happy ending doesn't include Jamie, who is slowly fading. Jamie knows his time is coming and he wants to spend it all with Sonia. He keeps asking Sonia what happens when you die, and all really Sonia says is, "Go to sleep, Jay. Go to sleep, Jay." Which is not what Jamie wants to hear, but it is all Sonia can really say because she doesn't want to give away the game or allow herself to start crying. And sadly, this is what Jamie would do as he flatlines as Sonia and Phil are crying their eyes out, just as Billy and little Mo embark on married life. 2002 is both a uniquely humbling episode and a surprising sleeper hit. It's the enthralling duality of Christmas, where for some it's a new beginning and about putting bad times in the past, while for others it's the beginning of loss and grief. It's easy to suggest that a majority of the audience can empathise with the Mitchells and the Brannings, losing a beloved family member far too young. It's also fascinating in how before Jamie is even dead, all of his family are deep within the stages of grief. It's a gripping balancing act between the defiantly depressing loss of Jamie and the almost comedically misfortune of two perpetually cursed underdogs finally getting their happy ending. The double-edged sword of Christmas, tragedy versus a new beginning. Then it's mediated by the emphatic and sharp Ian and Laura clash, where for once Ian is standing on the sword, taking great pleasure in throwing out his wife, who ironically is pregnant with his child. He manages to balance all three beautifully while correctly managing the emotions. Even so, it feels like such an underdog Christmas, with its headlining stories being on the surface quite unimpressive, and very low on the list of Christmas episodes that you would pick out on synopsis alone. I think it impressively captures the spirit of Christmas, and you can feel the joy from our favourite stars. Continuing it with the brilliance that is Sonia's raw guttural acting, and the outright sobering reality check of someone losing a family member so young. To us, this Christmas is about family, as you never know when it's your family, friend or loved one's final day, but it's also celebrating the fact that life moves on. It truly is the best thing about this Christmas. It's about family, whether it's the one you choose or the ones you're stuck with. With soaps at Christmas, you often end up rolling the dice. It is exceptionally difficult to try and recapture the magic, and at this point, keep capturing the magic countless years on, with it often being hard to recognise what deserves the festive nod, as you'll find with some of the Christmases on this list, where the person or people fronting the big day sometimes simply saying don't deserve it. But this one perfectly encapsulates family, and despite it not being the most grand, it's humble and leaves the viewer both happy that little Mo and Billy have their happy ending, but devastated at young Jamie Mitchell's life coming to an end prematurely. Christmas 2009. Christmas Day 2009 revolves around Archie Mitchell's final hurrah. He spent his entire tenure on our screens as a villain. His tale is quite similar to Den Watts. He arrived out of nowhere and suddenly assumed the head of the table of the Mitchells, underhandedly taking no prisoners, and was willing to throw anyone under the bus if they threatened his position. Similar to Den, he had his vision of how his immediate family were to act. Peggy, a bold and brash woman, was set to become more reserved. Ronnie and Roxy would be able to date, but only if he approved of them, which he never would. Anyone who risks his position, like Danielle or Phil, he would always antagonise. This, however, is the end of Archie, as his lies would catch up to him, with the Mitchells disowning him and thrusting him out of the family. From that moment forward, he had lost all he held near and dear, so he had one mission: to destroy the one thing the Mitchell family loved more than anything else, their position in the Queen Vic. So, just shy of 18 months, Archie had used and abused anyone who had gotten in his way, which meant there was only one way he was going to go. Therefore, it set the perfect scene for Christmas Day with an Archie Mitchell whodunit. As it is a whodunit, it's easier to explain the possible suspects. Archie starts off Christmas Day in the Vic, with Janine Butcher the person who he schemed with to get the pub. So, while Janine is ecstatic to be back within the Vic, Archie is simply planning her dismissal, which involves a special treasure hunt which leads to a one-way ticket to Poland, and Janine dumped in the middle of the square in her sexy Santa lingerie. Jack Branning proceeds to threaten to kill him if he hurts Ronnie again. He taunts Ian, who is searching for the video of him cheating. Sam Mitchell makes an attempt to confront Archie but gets the door slammed in her face. Ronnie Mitchell tells him he will not make her care for him and she wouldn't care if he died. Archie in turn would throw her out, onto the same spot Ronnie pushed Danielle onto the night she died. Peggy threatens him, reminding him that she is not just an innocent old lady. She claims that if Archie doesn't leave the pub that night, he will regret every evil act he has ever done. Archie fights back though, and insists that unless she returns, he'll convert the pub into flats. He lets out some emotion and says he'll be waiting for her. Bradley Branning punches Archie across the face, cutting his fist and loosening one of Archie's teeth. Archie, all alone in the end, picks up the snow globe off the floor and shakes it around, and he doesn't notice that the Queen Vic bust has been pushed off the side and crashes into his head, leaving him dying on the Queen Vic floor. I maintain that this is the last of the great Christmas episodes in this period, with there being multiple failures to deliver and top billings that were disastrously underwhelming. This broadcasts Archie Mitchell, a villain whose legacy preceded itself in part by the 18-month window where he rose to power. Notice how even after he died on the show, the writers took great pleasure in trying to ramp up his villainy. I think the pairing of, at the time, one of soap's most prized storyline tropes in a whodunit and ending the Christmas episode with the shocking death remains a masterstroke of genius, and it's a beautiful pairing which pays off in spades and unites two of soap's most exciting events. This episode provides a majorly exciting realization where it feels like everyone had a major reason and justification as to why they wanted to see the back of Archie. I both really enjoy this episode, but also feel it struggles to balance the joy and excitement of Christmas itself. There is much less emphasis on the big day, ramping up the adversaries to our villain, but in a sense I don't think the mystique of Archie Mitchell is enough alone. Pretty much everything is washed out and miserable, which blends a troublesome Christmas that fills the audience with dread as opposed to joy. Most Christmas episodes are supposed to be a balancing act, where yes, the main story will dominate, but you have to appeal to the different aspects. The humour, the joy, the excitement, families together, but it feels like everyone collectively is having a rotten time. Now, this criticism may be slightly out of pocket, but one has to question whether this would have been how Den Watts would have ended, had his exit not hurled towards the finish line. A lot of the characterization is quite similar, and I think the muddled handling of the storyline and beyond renders the legacy quite unfortunate. Yes, Archie was evil, but the lengths explored afterwards to try and add more tragedy and disgust I think hurts it dramatically. I think this is something of a display of the failing direction of EastEnders at the time. A lot of the relationships established when most of these characters are introduced are far from where they should be, and everything is just caked in this bleak and toxic sludge where happiness is a currency that is exceedingly hard to come by. I think at this stage onwards, the producers are desperately scrambling to try and maintain the heights of what came before, but keep over-egging the pudding and believe that despair is what will carry you into the future, forgetting that at a certain point, people stop wanting to invest in tragedy. Christmas 2006. Christmas 2006 is the end of an era. After 21 long hard years as Pauline Fowler, it was time for Wendy Richards to go. Not for lack of trying though, as it felt like half of our abandoned storylines iceberg were about trying to get rid of our Pauline. Now, before we get to Pauline, we have to set up the next Christmas main storyline. Young, fresh-faced Stacey Slater has been given the gift of an older man, who she is not supposed to be attracted to, but is. Stacey and Bradley are broken up, and Jean doesn't really understand why. Bradley was right for Stacey, but the toxic attraction of his father was too much for Stacey, who proceeds to spend this Christmas propositioning Max Branning, who keeps saying no, but in true Max fashion caves in. Stacey lashes out in the Vic, saying she is over Bradley, and if anyone wants to go with him, be prepared for rubbish sex and a lot of hugs. Stacey goes back home and demolishes the Christmas tree, only for Max to come in and they bunk up on the hard wooden stairs. In the meantime, Gary and Minty are hired to be Santa and an elf. They fake falling off a ladder and con Phil out of a couple £100. They were lying about the legs, so Phil dresses up as Santa, and while putting on the costume, he falls into the boxes of crisps.
And I was thinking about you.
They would also set up Ben's nightmarish stepmom in Stella Crawford with perhaps the start of her hatred for him, when he pranks her with a whoopee cushion in front of the entire pub. Finally, for the main event, Pauline is feeling reflective on her last Christmas in Walford. After having her house nearly burnt down, she wants to leave and live with Michelle in Florida. We hear quotes from the Fowler family, Mark, Arthur, Michelle, and of course Martin. Relations between Pauline and her family are strained at best, but the person she hates most is Sonia Fowler, her son's wife. The first person to try and convince her to stay is Ian. After he was raised in the Beale Fowler house, Pauline was always a pillar of stability, and he wants her to stay because she is the only one who believed in him. Pauline sheds a tear and says Ian can look after himself. He's old enough. Ian leaves and tells Dot while Pauline visits Arthur and Mark's grave, shedding a few tears. She is reluctant to leave her family behind, but she has to. She goes to the laundrette and sees Dot, who says to Pauline this isn't what Arthur would want. Pauline rightfully snaps back and says he was my husband. Why does everybody think they know what Arthur would want? Dot explains how she doesn't have many friends left and she can't share memories of seeing Pauline growing up and playing with her toys and seeing her dad assemble her dollhouse to anyone else. Pauline says she's made up her mind and she's leaving, and that's the second person who can't convince her to stay. Enter her nemesis, Sonia Fowler, who relatively tries to get Pauline back on side. Sonia tells Pauline she's jealous. Jealous because Sonia has a clause in Martin and she doesn't anymore. Pauline says she's jealous because you changed Martin. Sonia asks why she can't be a normal mum and share him, and Pauline says it's because of you. Sonia slaps Pauline across the face, then apologizes and says she didn't want to fight her. Pauline tells her to leave, and that's 3 down, and so far no one has convinced Pauline to stay. But where is Martin? All of a sudden, Pauline is a little dizzy. She finds a note left by Bex who says, "I love you, Granny." Pauline gets a knock on the door and says, "Martin, if that's you, I'm staying." But Martin is nowhere to be seen. She knocks on the door where Bex is staying, but gets no answer. She then walks into the middle of the square and collapses right next to the Christmas tree and Arthur's bench with only the dog to keep her company. Everyone comes out of the Vic, but Dot notices Pauline is on the ground. She shouts over Martin, who checks her over, realizing she's dead. I think this Christmas is an absolute sleeper hit for us, and it's hard to quantify why. This episode acts as a perfect end of an era, where everyone who mattered desperately tries to get Pauline to stay. It's apt that in soap especially a lot of children are desperately worried over becoming their parents, and it's no shocker to argue that Pauline has become Lou Beale in spades. It's quite hilarious that when talking about now, everyone yells about Pauline becoming a dragon, and yes, it made her a much more abrasive character to deal with. I think it makes Pauline all the more compelling. With Pauline becoming Lou at the end, she is a woman who would rather die than have a rare vulnerable moment with her family. She was so stubborn and headstrong and refused to accept the truth that if Martin would have asked her to stay, she would have, but only if he made the first move. Otherwise, she would have bitterly swanned off to New York with Michelle and probably spent the rest of her life complaining over how Martin had the choice to change her mind and he failed her. It acts as an incredibly poignant display and a really fascinating dissection of Pauline as a character. Yes, she may be incredibly quick to trigger, but what actions have led her to this position? Pauline is a character who has lost everyone she'd ever loved. Her mum, her twin brother, Arthur, Mark. Michelle is never really around and she sees Martin slipping away. She has had to fight tooth and nail to still be there, and even in the end she is advocating for herself and her family. She both has one of the most enjoyably scenic deaths, dying next to Arthur's bench and in the snow, while instilling the utmost tragedy where if Martin had accepted her once again, she would have stayed, but we will never know the answer. There's something so wonderfully ironic over how wanting Martin to herself without sharing him was the death of Pauline. I adore the beautiful framing of her dying right next to Arthur's bench, and the only bittersweet part is something that Wendy Richards argued about, in that Pauline should never have remarried. I think the bringing together of her and Joe Mesa was nonsense, and just lended itself to muddying the legacy of Arthur and Pauline, so it's triumphant that in the end it all came full circle. This Christmas is quietly confident, but delivers. Even within taking a significantly downtrodden Pauline, at this stage of her EastEnders tenure, it draws upon so much rich history that encapsulates and accentuates the sleeping giant of a Christmas episode. Christmas 2007. Christmas 2007 is a modern classic. The premise and plot is a staggering reveal when Max and Stacey's affair is exposed in front of the whole family on the TV as everyone is stunned. Equally, Christmas platforms many of the recent success stories in the newish Branning family and the rising star in Stacey Slater. This Christmas starts with the Brannings. Tanya kisses Max while Max is happy that he's got his family back. To detail the subplots, Jack Branning hunts down information about Phil's daughter Louise Mitchell. She's been found and Jack says he'll find out more information the following week, but mostly the Mitchells' Christmas is highlighted by Aunt Sal, who is getting plastered. Phil just wants a quiet Christmas, but Aunt Sal drinks the pub dry and puts the whole family on blast. Stephen Beale goes to see Ian and Jane. This is after Stephen has shot Jane in the stomach. Jane says 1 hour. Stephen is of course forced to leave 1 hour later on the dot. It's time for the main event. That is the Brannings' Christmas. Max and Tanya are arranging the Christmas dinner and setting it up for the Slaters. They have dinner while Lauren notices that something is off. She goes upstairs and cries, while Max eventually goes to check on Lauren while wearing his Santa costume. Lauren says everything's alright, but we've come to know that she has planted this DVD under the tree. Bradley gets a gift that is this DVD and puts it right on screen, and it says it's the wedding day as Lauren filmed it. But then it switches on as the family see Max and Stacey in a cozy moment where he starts to unzip her dress and he says he loves her, and they kiss. Everyone is stunned, and that's the end of part 1. It's a phenomenal piece of tension and arguably one of the best reveals in soap history. In part 2 we see the fallout. Max and Bradley argue. Bradley leaves and Max professes his innocence, claiming that they were just messing around and it was all a joke. Jean doesn't believe that Stacey would do it, but Stacey's poker face slips and she's finally happy to have the secret out in the open. Tanya then orders everyone out, while Sean Slater stays and comforts her. She makes a move on him, but Sean tells her he isn't that sort of guy. Tanya goes upstairs and tells Abby and Lauren to pack their things as they are leaving. Bradley and Max have a massive Barney over how he would even do that to him, while Max refuses to take any real responsibility. Bradley falls over some chairs and tells Max to stay away. He runs back to their flat, which he had done up for the baby. Max eventually runs back to Tanya's house and says, "I'm sorry, Tanya." But Tanya doesn't want to see him. She screams at him to stay away, but Tanya ends up falling down the stairs. Now, I acknowledge that Christmas 2007's reveal is utterly iconic and one of the best EastEnders has ever produced. They perfectly allow this suspense to fester and use every single second in order to build to this grand reveal. The episode is a beautiful slow burn and delicately flows from tension to suspense. Likewise, I admire the platforming of the recently redeveloped Brannings and the sensational Stacey Slater, all of whom are forever etched into history because of their part in this episode. Therefore, you may be wondering, if I built up this episode and given it so many plaudits, then why is it only number 2? And to that, I feel I have to remind everyone, this is only part 1 out of part 2. If it had simply ended after the 30-minute mark, it would probably be the near perfect Christmas episode. But at the end of the day, whenever everyone talks about this episode, they exclusively talk about part 1. Considering all that, it would be bold of me to put it any lower than 2 on this list, as its peaks are some of the highest the show has ever seen. It executes this to such a high extent, it's just in my opinion that I believe they overcooked it. The closing moments you remember as a viewer is the ending of part 1, but would it surprise you to know that the closing moment is Tanya falling down the stairs? I think they flew too close to the sun and tried to do too much with the time. It would have taken so much conviction to be willing to stamp the end after the 30-minute episode, but in their defense, it may not have been up to the writers. So I'd either argue to stall the DVD reveal out during the whole hour-long episode, or end it at the 30-minute mark and allow all of the mayhem to take place on Boxing Day. Regardless, I think that the reputation precedes itself, the DVD under the tree, the Stacey and Max reveal which sent shockwaves, and to me, laid part of the path for something of a renaissance period for EastEnders. However, I truly believe that this is critically overrated because no one talks about part 2, and if we are ranking Christmas episodes, it would be dishonest of us to not talk about the elephant in the room. Even thinking beyond these episodes, it's pretty funny to think about how most of these characters peaked during this era, with it feeling like Max Branning has been circling the same page ever since, while Stacey has gone from strength to strength. I acknowledge that this is probably something of a hot take to have anything other than Christmas 2007 as number 1, but at the end of the day it has become overrated, with perhaps a lot of people forgetting or choosing to forget the underwhelming and disappointing part 2. Now, before we get to the final piece of the puzzle, let's recap the list. Number 11, Christmas 2011. Number 10, Christmas 2012. Number 9, Christmas 2004. Number 8, Christmas 2010. Number 7, Christmas 2008. Number 6, Christmas 2005. Number 5, Christmas 2002. Number 4, Christmas 2009. Number 3, Christmas 2006. Number 2, Christmas 2007. And if you've been counting, it's now time for number 1. Christmas 2003. Christmas 2003 captures the lightning in the bottle that is Alfie Moon and Kat Slater, with Alfie being initially introduced for a The Graduate type scenario where Alfie was set to become Peggy Mitchell's boy toy. But fortunately for us fans, the electric chemistry between Kat and Alfie took form, so they pivoted away and gave us the infinitely more iconic Kat and Alfie. Though it would have been interesting to see what Palfie would have had in store. This Christmas is about the twisted road paved with misfortunes surrounding Kat and Alfie getting married, with Kat hoping to finally get her happy ending. Alfie, often taking the path of most resistance, agrees to marry Kat but without dotting his I's and crossing his T's. Throughout the episode, Kat is blooming from ear to ear while Alfie is racked with guilt, realising he never got the official clear-all for his divorce. He hires his old mate to be a priest, who was played by David Williams, and he stumbles through the marriage ceremony. Alfie and Kat are nearly in the clear until the dreaded "if anyone has any objections" line, where Alfie begrudgingly raises his hand. This shocks Kat, as she needs to know why Alfie won't marry her. He admits that the divorce papers haven't come through, and he is sorry, but Kat is gutted, wondering why Alfie would get her hopes up only to shatter them right at the last hurdle. Alfie can do nothing but apologise until he gets the all clear, and turns out the divorce went through, and they can get married after all. In other matters, Den Watts is back in Walford and needs to get his family back. He's got Sharon, his princess, Sharon with a dodgy American accent, and Sharon, who's an illegitimate child of his, who he neglects. For Phil's treatment of Sharon, Den arranged a whole robbery with Phil, where in the final moment Den stitched Phil up, leaving him trapped with a gun and all of the stolen money for the police to find. Phil has been on the run since, but he needed one last festive showdown with Den. Phil with one arm confronts Den, in Angie's den, where he manhandles him, throwing him around like an old tracksuit. Den finally gets the upper hand by using his cunning and says, "About time you showed up," which distracts Phil as Den breaks a chair over his back. Den acts like the bigger man and offers Phil money, and offers to put it in the past. With time ticking, Phil understands that he needs to go back on the run and takes the money. Kat and Alfie do get married, and they have a lovely wedding, which ends in Kat's idyllic way as they celebrate their marriage in the beautiful white snow of Christmas 2003, and everyone dances to toast their success while Phil is left scorned and on the run again. Kat and Alfie as a couple were absolutely made for one another. Both had lived quite strained existences and never really knew happiness until they met one another. They were in pursuit of a dream that neither had any faith in ever achieving, in an almost Pavlovian dog-type scenario, where Kat, through a troubled life, was conditioned to believe the worst outcome will always take shape. Even if it was set to get better, Kat would self-destruct and give herself the worst odds of coming through to the other side. Even with Alfie, who had a good heart but would consistently be wheeling and dealing, being a cheeky chappy who never necessarily wanted to commit. I find that Alfie never really saw himself settling down before Kat, while Kat had never really believed that life could go her way. When discussing the episode, it is a perfect uniting of the pair, as they had an almost childhood sweetheart approach, where everything was joyous and giddy as opposed to crude and sexual. It's a marvellous allegory to almost depict the build-up to Kat and Alfie finally being open about their feelings for one another. If the audience has never seen it, there is an entire episode where Kat and Alfie are ready to seal the deal, but Alfie doesn't have protection, and he spends a full episode of adversity trying to get protection so they can make love, but when he gets it in the end, he gets back home and Kat has fallen asleep. It's more of a teenage love story as opposed to anything else. It's quite beautiful in a sense because it's a really light episode where it feels like nothing else matters. In a way, what's 20 more minutes of angst between a couple that has seen it all? The ending of this Christmas episode is one of the most infectiously happy endings to any episode ever. As it's snowing and everyone is united while We Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day blasts through the square with everyone dancing in the snow. There's no other Christmas moment like it because everyone is living in the moment. It's a celebration of family, friends, enemies, but in that moment, nothing matters, and if you are ever feeling low or hopeless, this ending is just fantastic, and I feel it will never be topped in sheer unbridled happiness. I adore a change of a guard in a sense. This Christmas is headlined by Kat and Alfie, but notably takes shape in ending the story of a leaving Phil Mitchell and reasserting Den Watts at the centre, having usurped the King of Walford. The re-established Watts family would take centre stage at the next Christmas. At the end of the day, this Christmas is mesmerising and encapsulates the charm of Christmas like no other. While Christmas 2007's reveal is utterly iconic, 2003's upbeat nature and refusal to get stuck in the mud elevates it to be a truly enchanting Christmas. Almost perfectly apt in a way, as it is all about forgetting the past tragedies and uniting as one, refusing to be defined by the trauma that came before. Merry Christmas, everyone, and unlike Christmas 2003, I do not wish it was Christmas every day. I, for one, implore you as an audience to go back and watch most of these Christmas episodes. For us here at Watching Walford, it is a really enjoyable yearly tradition where we get to forget about everything else and watch some of these episodes for the first time. I hope everyone has enjoyed this ranking, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on our list. At the end of the day, it all comes down to opinion, and we don't all have the same level of investment for every Christmas. With all that said, I want to thank everyone who has made Watching Walford special this year, and I'm already excited at the prospect of next year and the progress we aim to achieve. I also want to give a shout out to Piggy, who played a major role in helping me write this video, which made the process so much easier, and it probably wouldn't have taken shape as easily without his help. So once again, thank you, Piggy. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and a happy new year to you all. We really couldn't do it without you.